You've entered room 44, where the quiet stories speak the loudest, and the worst ones happen next door. Based on true events, the names have been changed. But what happened? That was real. If you're alone right now, make sure your door's locked and press play. 3 months ago, my neighbor knocked on my door at 3:47 a.m., wearing a bathrobe, smiling, holding a Tupperware container. He said, "I thought you might want a midnight snack. It's still warm." I didn't take it. I closed the door. 2 days later, they found something in his freezer. I still don't know if I was supposed to be dessert or if he was offering me someone else. I moved into that apartment complex in March. The building was 4 stories of old concrete, lined with metal balconies and covered in ivy that had long since turned brown. Rent was cheap, which meant it came with broken mailboxes, rattling pipes, and thin walls. Perfect for someone who didn't want to be noticed. After a messy breakup and quitting a job I hated, I just wanted quiet, a place to disappear for a while. On my 3rd night there, I met Mr. Delaney, who lived in apartment 3C, directly next to mine. Mid-40s, maybe older, thin, always in a worn robe, with glasses that magnified his eyes too much. He offered to help me bring in boxes, said he'd been there longer than anyone. He was polite, calm, even overly friendly, but there was something else, something delayed about him, like he was always catching up to the moment after it already passed. I thanked him and said I had it covered. He smiled, nodded, and lingered a little too long before going back inside. That night I heard something scraping against my wall, a faint dragging sound like nails across plaster. I figured it was just bad insulation, maybe mice. But when I tapped the wall to test the sound, it stopped. I stood there holding my breath, listening. Then 3 taps came back. The next morning I ran into him by the mailboxes. He crouched low, staring at one of the open slots like he could see something moving inside. "People lick their envelopes differently when they lie," he said without looking at me. "You can taste the hesitation." I stared, trying to decide if he was joking, but he just stood up and walked off like he hadn't spoken at all. Over the next 2 weeks, his behavior escalated. One night, I caught him standing in the hallway perfectly still, facing his door, but not going in. He stood there for almost an hour. Another night, I walked past his unit and saw him through the peephole, sitting in the dark, motionless, with his head tilted slightly upward like he was listening to something inside the walls. I started keeping my door locked, even during the day. Then the notes began. The first was slid under my door at 2 a.m. No envelope, just folded notebook paper. It read, "You drag the chair when you sit in the kitchen. That means you're alone. That means no one hears you." My chest tightened. I threw the note away and shoved a dresser in front of my door. The second note came 4 nights later. "I like how you sleep on your side. You breathe quieter that way." I bought a door bar and a motion detector light the next day. Still, it wasn't enough. One night, around 1:30 a.m., I went to the shared laundry room. Every dryer was full, perfectly folded clothes, but they weren't mine or anyone's I recognized. Each load had one out-of-place item resting on top: a raw steak, a peeled apple, a used toothbrush, a single baby shoe. On the wall above the dryers, written in pencil so faint you almost missed it, were the words, "We all leave stains." I left the laundry, left the building, didn't come back until daylight. The next morning, I asked the property manager about Mr. Delaney. He gave me the usual shrug. "He's been here forever. Creepy, sure, but quiet. Never caused trouble." I asked how long he'd lived there, and the manager hesitated before saying, "We don't really talk about 3C." Later that week, I came home late from work and found something waiting on my doormat. A package, not from Amazon, with no label. Inside was a raw egg, still in its shell, sitting in a small Tupperware container on a bed of folded tissue. Underneath the egg was a note. "You don't eat what's offered." That's not polite. I didn't sleep that night. Then came the knock. It was 3:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just checked my phone when the knock came. Slow, measured, deliberate. I got up, walked to the door, and checked the peephole. Mr. Delaney, smiling, wearing his bathrobe, holding another Tupperware container. "I thought you might want something warm," he said. "You don't eat enough, you're getting thinner." I asked what it was, and he smiled wider. "Something I've been saving. A midnight snack." I didn't answer, just closed the door slowly and locked it. I sat behind the door for over an hour, listening. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement, just stillness. 2 days later, unmarked police vehicles pulled into the lot. No lights, no sirens, just quiet men in dark coats who went straight to 3C. They didn't knock. They used a key. Mr. Delaney didn't fight, didn't speak, just smiled as they cuffed him and let him out. One of the neighbors said they carried out 3 freezers from his kitchen. Another claimed that they found bones in one. Human bones. I waited until the police left, then spoke to the maintenance guy. He was shaking. Quit 2 days later. He told me what he saw. Mr. Delaney had a logbook, a thick spiral notebook, dog-eared and stained. Inside were names, first names, of people who used to live in our building, tenants who disappeared, supposedly moved out. Next to each name were detailed notes, what they ate, what time they showered, whether they had visitors, how often they opened their fridge, whether they locked their doors. He tracked them, planned them, categorized them. Each person had a prep method and a preservation time. He had a deep freezer filled with labeled containers, vacuum sealed. Some dated back years. The police never released the full details, but the story made it to local news. Man arrested after human remains found in apartment freezer. No mention of the logbook. No mention of how many names were listed. I moved out that weekend, left everything behind except a suitcase and my laptop. But I didn't throw away the Tupperware. It sat in my freezer for weeks. I didn't open it, couldn't. But I couldn't toss it either, not until I knew. One night I cracked it open. Inside was a piece of raw meat, marbled, thick, no label, no smell. Beneath it, folded in wax paper, was a note. "You didn't eat. So now you carry it. You're part of me now." I dropped it, slammed the freezer shut, and scrubbed my hands until they bled. I took the container out back to a construction site dumpster and threw it in. But I swear I still smell it sometimes. On my pillow, in my clothes, on my skin. Last week I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said, "I liked how you dragged your chair." That night I moved the dresser back in front of the door, but at 3:47 a.m., I woke up anyway. This time it wasn't a knock. It was a whisper right outside the door. But it wasn't Mr. Delaney's voice. It was someone else, higher pitched, softer, almost amused. It said, "You left your freezer open." This was room 44. If this story disturbed you, good. That means it worked. Now it's your turn. Like, share, and subscribe. if you want more true horror stories that stay with you long after they're over. We post new nightmares every week. But fair warning, the psycho never looks like one until it's too late.